A little while ago, earlier this week, I had a pretty large panic attack. 2 days of laying in bed and a couple changes in prescription medication later, and I seem to be doing fine again. But none of that's important. What is important, however, is the lesson I learned from this. No, not that laying in bed for a majority of the day is a bad coping mechanism for stress. And no, not that being dependent on medication means more things your basic well-being relies on. What it taught me is the importance of self-care, how no matter what happens in life, it's up to you to try and keep yourself feeling well. However, not much I've been doing recently seems to work, so this has led me to engage in some alternative stress management techniques I found. Now, I'm not typically one to buy into trends, but this game looked kinda neat. I've always been a fan of social games, where although there's still a central gameplay feature, the focal point is just talking to other people. The genre might also appeal to me, as games in it are pretty commonly marketed as great for socially awkward losers to meet new people with, and while I'm not socially awkward or... well, loser is a subjective term. Look, my point's that I like games where you just mess around and have a good time interacting with other people. So here's the big question, though. Why fishing? And in all honesty, I don't know. I'm also not sure why everyone in this game is a silly cartoon dog or cat, but it doesn't really seem to be negatively impacting the experience, so that's fine. Fishing and using a computer have a few things in common. The first is that they're mostly sedentary activities, but the big difference is that fishing is done outdoors, like in the sun or rain, with wind and bugs and stuff, and not inside sitting on a cushy chair, or not cushy depending on how often you sit in it, surrounded by Funko Pops or whatever the hell it is that the average internet user likes to decorate their room with. So that kind of nullifies one of fishing's biggest components, its use as an escape. On the other hand, I'm absolutely overthinking this, and the truth is that people just like to do mindless things for entertainment or distraction. So this game very much feels like an attempt to bring fishing to a new audience and or generation. Like someone said, I like fishing, but I really think it needs more funny animals and gay people, and now here we are. So things start off alright. I look through the server list, going past a surprisingly large amount of adults-only servers. I'm not really sure what people would be doing in this game to warrant such a label being put on a server, but in pretty much every situation where people are given the ability to speak without any repercussions, you're going to find a few new terms that you don't think needed to be invented. After I joined a session, I found some rudimentary guidance in the form of the quest board offering rewards like money and hats for catching fish and other sea creatures. I then forget all that and wandered over to where 3 other people were supposedly fishing alien fish. I accidentally drowned, but it's actually fine since the other people were right, and I find this weird-ass fish with a dog's head on it. Wonderful. This doesn't go on much longer, as I now realize that I have absolutely no bait on my rod and that most creatures don't have the urge to find metal hooks to chew on, so whoops. Thankfully, I found this fox guy that hides in a hole in the ground and sells bait. It also pays me for any of the fish I give it. I'd say I feel bad for parting ways with my weird alien fish so soon, but hey, 64 bucks is 64 bucks. Anyways, I'm trying to make my way back to the lake, but I keep getting distracted by the barrage of meteors that's ongoing for some reason. I keep mistaking it for explosions or gunfire, but then I'm remembering this is the opposite of a game designed to scare my paranoid ass, because this is a calm game. The fishing is pretty simple, but also quite fun. I'm glad it's fun, because it would be a pretty big loss for the game called Webfishing to lack good fishing. Because as it stands right now, I don't see any webs, spider or otherwise, so at least one of those two things is correct. Nothing notable happens for a while until I press the G key, which, here's what that does. Now, on top of being a funny sound, this action has a tendency to compel pretty much every single person around you to also make a funny noise. Here, watch this. Check this out. As far as I'm aware, there is no actual purpose to doing this at all. Anyways, fishing kind of works like you'd expect it to. You get bait, you cast out, you wait a while for things to bite, then you reel in the fish. Simple enough. Except not really, because some of these fish are actual health spawn and will easily break off your line and run off somewhere else. Well, swim. After that defeat, I head back to camp and use my fish money to buy a hat. I forgot to save enough money to buy clothes, so we're gonna need to catch a few more fish before I can make myself look socially acceptable. Once I made it back to the lake, I got next to some other people and just cast away again. This is the moment where the game kinda clicked for me. I was just sitting there, fishing. But then I thought, hey, I'm enjoying this. This is nice. And it's just cozy. It's like sitting alone at your desk, but with other people, and fishing. Anyways, once I make it to the Shadow Realm, I stick around and fish with the others for a while. I get bored of the fathomless depths pretty quickly and buy some canned beer from a vending machine to try to take my mind off that. Thankfully, my extra fish were worth enough to get some new clothes, and I get a style upgrade, which is pretty sweet. I mean, look at that hat. Anyways, feeling a little bit more confident in myself after buying this sweet hat and a pair of glasses that complete the sleep-deprived midlife crisis look, I set back out to the lake for another fishing session. I quickly realized that it's been quite a long time since I actually talked to anyone, so I attempt to strike up a conversation with this person sitting on a bench next to me. They don't really seem to care. I meander around a little until this person asks me if I want to meet the waterfall man, who is actually just a tombstone and a grave. While I normally make this random thing a major part of the video's script like usual, I decide not to and instead fish more, except I forgot bait again. I decided to check out a different lobby, and I met with a really cool mural of what I can assume someone wishes they looked like in real life. I did, however, get a cool new lure that adds pop-up buttons that I can click on during the fishing minigame for extra cash. Nice. So I find a new lobby, and basically, I've been spending the past 5 minutes trying to jump onto this big rock in the ocean where this one person is roleplaying giving birth for some reason. I spent a couple minutes trying to get on top of the rock and... Oh, Jesus Christ.
Hi.
Hi, what's happening?
Boredom.
Can I show you my big hole?
What? These are some very good server names. Webfishing, I mean pissing, I mean I. Anyways, once I get back into another lobby, I witness some horrible violence going on near the beach. This reminds me that I should probably mention that there are a few other tools and toys you can buy that aren't fishing rods. If you really want to, you can buy boxing gloves and punch everyone else into the water. Personally, I make sure that the other party consents to being punched into the lake before attacking them. This way everyone's happy and you can lower your chances of getting kicked by the host. There are also musical instruments you can buy. I'll see people play guitar quite often to entertain the other fishers present. I was also so inspired by this one really shoddy cover of Pumped Up Kicks that I decided to write some web fishing inspired lyrics to it. You can see them on screen here. I bought a guitar, but hey, it's actually quite difficult to play well. Who would have figured? Thankfully enough, there are some guides on the Steam community page that have tabs and tuning requirements for specific songs, so I figured we'd try one out. That's the only part I memorized. I don't know the rest of the song. And what you don't actually know is that took me 15 minutes to set up and play properly. I've also never listened to Weezer before, or played a guitar. I mean, this is hard! The tambourine is much more my preferred level of complexity. There's also a silly little vending machine at the main camp where you can buy drinks. I didn't realize there was a beverage that made more fish bite as well as increasing the amount of XP or money you get when catching things, so I missed out on a lot of potential gains. However, I did find drinks that make you run faster or jump higher. There's no practical use to these as far as I'm aware, but you can get around pretty fast, and it's fun, so I like it. There's also alcohol! Alcohol is funny because if you see someone drinking a lot of it while doing something, it usually means they either really like what they're doing or really, really hate it. It always keeps you guessing, and I think that's something more beverages should try to do. It's also really dangerous to drink large quantities of around bodies of water, as I figured out, but that didn't stop me. I also realized that there were multiple tiers of drunkenness in web fishing, so I decided to see what the maximum was. As far as I'm aware, there are 4 different stages. I also calculated the exact amount of beers it takes to get this drunk, which is 6. I don't know how many wine bottles it takes to get the same effect. Okay, well, I might as well. Okay, it's 4. It's 4 bottles of wine. But this is actually a bit more costly, you know, by $140 more. So it's certainly not the most economic way to get drunk off your ass. With that being said, despite all the research I've done into alcohol, I still haven't found any possible benefits to drinking. It makes moving harder, it slurs your speech, like I really don't see any reason why you'd do this at all. Now, while this video has been pretty compact so far, I should mention that this all took place over a time span of 5 or so hours. I spent a lot of time in between these unique things just fishing. You might think of that as a good thing or a bad thing, but what's important is the fact that I didn't want to make people think that this game didn't have fishing in it by spending a majority of the time talking about other things. Because most of my playtime looked like this. Just fishing. What you're watching right now. I like going to the shop and getting upgrades that allow me to catch cooler fish or make my fishing time easier, or buying cool clothes and customizing your little guy. Really, you're in control of what you do. You're responsible for making your own objectives. Maybe you're thinking, I totally need to make it on top of that rock, or wow, I really want to catch that big thing, or I should kiss that guy that's been standing still outside the starting point for a few minutes. Anyways, I went back to the lake and started fishing again, but found myself constantly being distracted by the two people getting married right next to me. They kept talking and I could hear them making out, which was really bad for my supposedly really relaxing fishing session. I headed off somewhere else and found a neat little shack on the beach selling some things that I wasn't able to find anywhere else. Among these things was a metal detector. This is gonna be fun. Spoiler alert, it wasn't fun. I spent a while walking around the place like a moron looking for cool buried treasures, and after a few minutes of walking around in the rain, I found a whopping 2 separate items. They were a button and a button. Awesome. You can go to the beach shack and assemble cool things like ornate watches, monocles, and swords from the pieces you find out looking for treasure, but I found nothing but buttons, so that's out of the question for now. I did find this sweet radio, though. And a few scratch tickets. I bought one $25 ticket and 7 or so $75 tickets. I think I turned a profit on most of them? Forgot the exact amount of money I spent on them and didn't count the total amount I won off them, so I'm just gonna assume that it wasn't a waste of money. Also, your guy will look really angry or really happy if you win or lose, which is really cute. I found a new lobby a little bit later, and there was this one person sitting on a bench pretty high up in the sky above the docks. I was pretty impressed by this complete and utter disrespect towards gravity, so I came closer and they took me to the secret island that, when left through another flag, managed to bring me up to this bench through some arcane bullshit, I guess. So that was quite nice. I ended up catching some of the rarest fish I ever found here, so maybe there's something to this strategy after all. A little bit later, we went through another flag portal and made it to this massive island that I decided was a great ending point for the video because I think I've covered pretty much everything I feel like I need to. So, while at the surface it's just a fun game, I applaud Webfishing for showing a lot of people the positive impacts of having social interactions and taking time to de-stress, no matter how odd the methods may be. It might just look like a silly game with a bunch of gay cats in it, but I've met a lot of nice people in the short time I've been playing, on top of being in some genuinely positive environments I've seen people create here. In my opinion, anything that can get people to come together over something random and relax is to be commended. So thank you, Webfishing, because I legitimately feel better than I did before I started working on this video. But that might also have been the $300 I won off Scratchits in the meantime.